My husband was in the hospital after a minor surgery. I brought him soup and stayed overnight in a chair. The next morning, his mother showed up with his favorite breakfast and said, "You can go now. He needs real care." My husband looked at me, then at her, and said, "Yeah, just let her handle it." I walked out and didn't answer their calls until he was discharged to an empty house. I'm a 38-year-old woman living just outside Dayton, Ohio. Married for 8 years. My husband's name is Nate. He's 41, a middle school history teacher. He's got this calm, everyone likes him kind of personality. You know the type. People think he's sweet and easygoing, and for a long time, I thought he was, too. We don't have kids. Not because we didn't want them, well, I did, but because Nate kept saying not yet. First it was money. Then it was his master's degree. Then it was maybe next year. After 5 years, I stopped bringing it up. That was the first time I learned to just quietly take my pain and live with it. This story isn't about that, but it's part of why what happened cut so deep. 2 weeks ago, Nate had a minor hernia surgery. Outpatient procedure. His doctor said it was routine and he'd be home the next day. I took the whole day off from work. I packed him a bag with his favorite sweatpants, brought crossword puzzles, and made sure his charger was in the side pocket. I brought his favorite chapstick because he always forgets it. When we got to the hospital, I sat in the waiting room for almost 4 hours while they prepped him, knocked him out, and did the surgery. I didn't eat. I didn't pee. I just waited, nervously checking the board every 10 minutes. After surgery, they let me into recovery. He looked pale, a little out of it, but okay. He squeezed my hand and mumbled, "You're here." "Thanks, babe." I felt this huge wave of relief. I helped the nurse adjust his blanket, made sure he had ice chips. I asked the nurse about the meds, wrote everything down. Then I drove home, made homemade chicken wild rice soup, his favorite. He always says mine's better than Panera. I brought it back in a thermos that night. When I walked into his room, he was still dozing, but when he smelled the soup, he smiled. "You're the best," he whispered. I didn't leave that night. I sat in one of those hard plastic chairs beside his bed. They offered to bring in a cot, but I said no, it was fine. He kept waking up in pain, and I didn't want to be far. I got up 3 times to help him to the bathroom, twice to call the nurse. He apologized for being needy, but I told him not to. That's what I'm here for. That night, I maybe got 2 hours of sleep. My back ached. My feet were swollen from sitting too long, but I was just happy he was okay. Then came the morning. Around 8:30, the door opened. I figured it was a nurse. It wasn't. It was Diane, his mother. She walked in with that smug look she always wears, like she's the queen of something. She had this big brown paper bag from that overpriced brunch place Nate loves, Egg and Cup in Kettering. It smelled like sausage and maple syrup. She brought his Morning Thunder latte. I saw the cinnamon sticking to the lid. "Good morning," she chirped, ignoring me. Thought I'd bring my baby something decent. I stood up slowly. My body screamed from the awful chair, but I managed a polite nod. Diane didn't look at me. She walked straight to Nate, kissed his forehead, then looked at me like I was some nurse who overstayed her shift. "You can go now," she said, all sweet like she was doing me a favor. "He needs real care." At first, I thought I heard her wrong. Then I looked at Nate, expecting him to speak up. He didn't. He looked between us and said, casual as anything, "Yeah, just let her handle it." I stared at him. He didn't even flinch. Just started digging into the waffle. I stood there for a second, long enough for the silence to turn sharp. I picked up my bag, walked past Diane, and left. Didn't say a word. The walk through the hospital hallway felt longer than the night in the chair. I didn't cry. Not right then. I just walked, like I was moving through glue. Once I got to the car, I sat there in silence for maybe 30 minutes. My phone buzzed. A text from him. "Hey, you okay? You just left." No apology. Just confusion. I didn't answer. That afternoon, he called. Twice. I ignored both. Around 5 p.m., I got a call from Diane. I didn't pick up, but she left a voicemail. Look, I understand this is hard for you. Some women just aren't natural caretakers. It's okay. I'm here. I've always been here for him. I blocked her. The next 2 days were quiet. He stayed in the hospital. I stayed at a friend's place. She and her husband were out of town, so I had their house to myself. I brought the dog. Nate didn't ask about him. Day 3, he called again. I'm coming home today. Can you grab a few things from the store? I didn't reply. When he got home, he walked into an empty house. I'd been busy. I took everything that was mine. My clothes, my books, my toiletries, the kitchenware I brought into the marriage. The couch was his, so I left that, but I took the throw blankets and all the decorative pillows. I left nothing comfortable. I took the dog because I adopted him before we were married. His name is Miller, and Nate used to call him our baby. Guess that was only true when it was convenient. I even cleared the DVR. It's petty, but I deleted every show we watched together. I canceled the meal delivery service we both used. Passwords? All changed. Joint account? I took half, exactly. Not a penny more. He texted later, "Where are you?" I didn't answer. The next message came an hour later. "Why is the house empty?" Still nothing from me. That night, he called again. Are you coming back?" All I texted was, "You chose her. Let her handle it." The next morning, I started getting texts from mutual friends. At first, they were just confused. "Hey, I saw Nate posted something about you leaving. Is everything okay?" Then it turned into whispers. "He said you abandoned him after surgery. That you just walked out without a word." That one made me laugh. Because yeah, I walked out. After he tossed me aside like a nurse clocking out. And I didn't give a word, not one. Because he didn't deserve it. But now he was rewriting it. Twisting it. Telling people I was the cold one. That I couldn't handle seeing him vulnerable. I didn't take the bait. I didn't defend myself. Not yet. Then my sister called. "Did you really leave him at the hospital?" I told her everything. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I knew he was close to his mom, but damn." The next twist came 2 days later. He showed up at my office. I was in the middle of processing invoices when I saw him through the glass doors, walking slow, one hand still pressed to his stomach. My stomach dropped. I stood up and walked to the lobby. My boss, Stan, peeked out of his office, probably wondering if it was a client. Nate looked tired, pale. The swelling around his jawline hadn't gone down completely. But I felt nothing, just cold. "I just want to talk," he said. 5 minutes. "Please." I didn't invite him to sit. I stood there, arms crossed. "Why didn't you come home?" he asked. "Why did you tell people I abandoned you?" He blinked. "Because it looked like you did." "No," I said. "I watched you sleep in a plastic chair all night. I made you soup. I wiped your face when you drooled. And the second your mommy walked in with a waffle, you told me to go." He opened his mouth to speak, but I didn't let him. "I didn't abandon you, Nate. You chose someone else to take care of you. So I let you have her. And now you want me back because the toast is burnt and the house is cold." "She didn't mean it that way." "She did," I snapped. "And you let her." We stood in silence for a long time. "I made a mistake," he said. "I was tired. Out of it. I thought you wouldn't mind going home for a bit." "You didn't ask me to go home. You told me to go." He swallowed. "I know." Behind him, my coworker walked past, pretending not to eavesdrop. "I just want to come home," he said. "I miss you. I miss the dog. I miss us." I didn't move. Finally, I said, "Let me ask you something. When you looked me in the eye and said, 'Yeah, just let her handle it,' did it feel like a choice?" He didn't answer. Because it was. I turned and walked back to my desk. The next week, his mother started her campaign. She called my mom. My mom told her I was being dramatic. That young women these days have no resilience. My mom hung up on her. Then Diane showed up at my friend's house, where I was staying, and left a basket on the porch. Inside was a handwritten note and a loaf of banana bread. The note said, "I know you're hurt, but families get through these things. Don't let pride ruin a good marriage." I left the bread on the porch. By evening, the crows had torn it apart. That same day, I got served papers. Nate was requesting marital counseling. Not divorce. Counseling. Through the courts. In Ohio, that's rare, but apparently, if one party refuses to talk, the other can request a formal mediation before divorce proceedings start. So now he wanted a forced conversation. He wanted to sit in a room with me and explain how the woman who called me cold and not a real caregiver deserved a seat in our marriage. I didn't answer the petition right away, but when I did, I brought evidence. Screenshots, voicemails, photos. I gave the mediator a full timeline, starting with the night in the chair, all the way to the banana bread on the porch. When they asked if I was willing to reconcile, I said, "Not unless she moves out of state and changes her name." They chuckled. I didn't. 2 days after that mediation meeting, I got an email from Nate. The subject line was just, "Please read this before you do anything final." I didn't want to, but I did. He wrote 5 paragraphs, trying to explain that his behavior in the hospital wasn't what it looked like. That he was in pain. That he felt embarrassed I had to see him like that. That he panicked when his mom came in and took control, and he didn't know how to stop her without causing a scene. He said he knew it was a weak excuse, but he didn't know how to fix it now. At the bottom, there was a line that stood out. "I think she's always wanted to be the woman in my life." I just never realized how far she was willing to go. That stuck in my head. That night, I pulled out my old journals. I started remembering things I hadn't thought about in years. Like how Diane used to call Nate 3 times a day, every day, for the first 2 years of our marriage. How she once told him he should keep a separate savings account, just in case. How when I got pneumonia 4 years ago and Nate stayed home to care for me, she dropped off vitamins and said, "You shouldn't have to play nursemaid. She has insurance." How she made a big scene when I didn't change my last name. Said it was a sign I wasn't really committed. The dots started connecting in a way I'd never let them before. Then came the kicker. My friend Amanda, whose place I was still crashing at, got a strange message on Facebook. From a woman named Tina. She was a nurse at the hospital. Said she remembered me, remembered Diane showing up. And said something weird happened after I left. She asked if I'd noticed any tension between Diane and Nate afterward. I told her I hadn't been there. Tina said, "Well, they were arguing." Not loud, but I passed by the room and heard her saying, "She'll be gone now. You don't need her. You have me." And Nate replied, "She's still my wife." I stared at the screen for a long time. Because that wasn't the man I walked out on. That was something else. Then she said, "Also, not sure it matters, but Diane asked the nurse on duty if she could be listed as the primary contact. Said she was the real caregiver and that the wife wasn't reliable." I sat there stunned. I checked the hospital paperwork. I'd taken photos of the discharge notes for our insurance. There it was, primary contact, Diane Milburn. She had replaced me. On paper. Without asking. And he let her. I forwarded that info to the mediator. I told them I wasn't just leaving a marriage. I was leaving a dynamic where another woman got to rewrite my role. The next day, Nate called again. I let it go to voicemail. But the message was different. He sounded angry. "Why are you dragging this out? We were fine until that day. I'm sick of being punished for something I didn't even do on purpose." Then he said something that made my skin crawl. "She's just trying to protect me." That's all she's ever done. That was the moment it clicked. He wanted someone to protect him. He didn't want a partner. He wanted a mother who'd cook and clean and do the emotional labor, and he already had one. So when I started asking for a life of equals, he checked out. But now that I was gone, he realized she couldn't replace me. She could make waffles and talk big, but she couldn't give him what I gave: patience, presence, real partnership. And now he was scrambling. But it was too late. And I wasn't done yet. After that voicemail, I knew I had to finish this my way. Not just walk away. Not just disappear. I wanted Nate to understand what he'd lost. Not in anger. In clarity. In silence that screamed louder than words. So I filed the divorce papers. No lawyers. No drama. Just a clean, sharp line in the sand. I used the evidence I had. Made sure the filing was strong. I listed irreconcilable betrayal and third-party interference in the claim. I sent the documents to him at school. He got them on a Friday morning. That afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was one of his students, a teenage girl. "Mrs. M, I'm sorry if this is weird, but Mr. M cried during class today. I think he's really messed up." I didn't answer. That night, I drove to the house. I hadn't been back since I left. It was dark. Cold. I saw the lights on in the kitchen. I parked across the street and watched. Diane was in there. Still there. Making tea or soup or whatever version of love she thought counted. Nate was at the table, just staring. That's when I made my move. Earlier that week, I'd had utilities transferred into my name. Most of them still were. He never updated them. At 9 p.m. sharp, the lights went off. Power disconnected. I saw her panic first, her arms flailing. Then him, standing up too fast, holding his side in pain. They scrambled. I could see them trying light switches, looking outside. Then my phone buzzed. It was him. "What the hell is going on?" "The power's out." I replied with one sentence: "She can't fix everything." The next morning, I had movers retrieve the last few boxes. Things I'd left on purpose. Things I knew he'd stare at and miss. The wedding photo from Yosemite. The signed vinyl of our favorite band. Miller's old chew toy. I left nothing sentimental behind. Then I sent one final email. Subject: Real care, Nate. You didn't lose me because of one moment. You lost me because you let someone else write me out of our story, and you didn't fight it. You wanted someone to take care of you. I did. Not with waffles or cinnamon lattes. With love. With sacrifice. With sleepless nights in hospital chairs. And you looked at all of it, then turned away. You called that not real care. So I left you with the person who fits your definition. Enjoy it. Me, it took months for the divorce to finalize. He didn't contest it. He signed where he had to, sent everything back quietly. Last I heard, Diane moved in full-time. She tells people I walked out because I was unstable. That's fine. Let her talk. Because here's the thing, the silence that followed, that's what did it. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I just let them live in the world they built together. And every time he opens that front door, sees her instead of me, hears her voice instead of mine. That's the revenge. Because he chose her. And I made sure she was all he had left.